On November 1st, 1700, the bells of Madrid tolled not just for a king's death, but for the slow collapse of a royal line. Charles II of Spain, last of the Habsburgs, had finally died. For 39 years, Charles hovered between life and death, a fragile body barely clinging on. His reign was less about ruling and more about surviving the horrors bred into him by royal inbreeding. Charles didn't fall in battle or from illness. He died from his own bloodline. Centuries of intermarriage among his ancestors had doomed him from the start, body and mind alike. He wasn't a ruler. He was a living example of aristocratic pride gone wrong. His birth was seen as a miracle, but his life was anything but. Every breath he took defied nature's laws. To understand his downfall, we go back to his birth, November 6th, 1661. Nicknamed Charles the Bewitched, many believed he was cursed. But the truth was far more disturbing. Charles was born from a union of uncle and niece. His father, Philip IV, married Mariana of Austria. This wasn't unusual for the Habsburgs, who married close relatives for 200 years. Their family tree didn't spread, it folded. Generations looped back on themselves. Names repeated endlessly. Nature was forced to work with the same flawed blueprints, again and again. Geneticists today say Charles had an inbreeding coefficient of 0.254, more than a child born from siblings. Emperor Charles V showed up 16 times in his lineage. Joanna the Mad? 14. Charles was deformed from birth. His head too large, his jaw jutted out grotesquely, his teeth misaligned. He couldn't chew, and his tongue constantly drooped from his mouth. He suffered from rickets, a disease that weakened his bones. He couldn't walk until age 8, and even then only with help. His speech was slurred, his thinking slow and cloudy. He struggled to learn and often failed to understand even simple things. But at 14, he was declared king. Spain's fate now rested in the hands of a boy who couldn't rule himself. Real power belonged to his ministers. Charles drifted through his royal court like a ghost. Diplomats who met him were horrified. One said he looked more dead than alive. As he aged, things worsened. Eating was a painful ordeal. He had to swallow food whole due to his jaw and tongue. This led to constant stomach pain and chronic malnutrition. He suffered frequent seizures that left him unconscious. His doctors bled him to balance his humors, a medieval remedy that only drained what little strength he had left. Charles sank into paranoia. He believed demons possessed him and spent hours in prayer. Priests were summoned often to perform exorcisms. His mind couldn't escape its suffering. He married twice, first to Marie-Louise of Orléans, then to Mariana of Neuburg. Both unions were aimed at producing an heir, but Charles was likely sterile from birth. Marie-Louise died young. Some said poison, others said heartbreak. His second wife, Mariana, lived in constant frustration. Charles could not function as a husband or a man. As the 1690s passed, Charles became even more reclusive. He obsessed over religion, seeking redemption for sins he didn't understand. The court around him fell into gloom. Then came the year 1700. Charles's body was shutting down. He vomited constantly, suffered from fever and diarrhea. He was so weak, servants had to hold him upright in bed. He babbled nonsense, didn't recognize his family, and drifted in and out of awareness. Spain's king was dying, not from war or plague, but from centuries of royal incest. His greatest worry was the future. He couldn't choose an heir. He rewrote his will again and again, torn by guilt and desperation to preserve a dying dynasty. At last, he named Philip of Anjou, grandson of Louis XIV of France, as his heir. This sparked the War of the Spanish Succession, over a decade of brutal fighting in Europe. Charles finally died on November 1st, 1700, in Madrid's royal palace. He was only 39, but his body was ancient. His death ended more than a life. It ended an entire royal legacy. His autopsy shocked physicians. His heart was tiny, his kidneys failed, his intestines scarred. Most shocking of all, his testicles had never descended. He was sterile all along. The Spanish Habsburgs ruled for nearly 200 years, but their end came not with a sword, but with a bloodline so damaged it could not continue. A dynasty collapsed under its own weight. Charles II's life teaches a hard lesson, that nature doesn't care for titles. Royal blood means nothing if it is twisted by generations of incest and arrogance. Born a king, he lived like a prisoner, trapped in a broken body, watched over by fearful nobles, unable to rule, love, or even eat without help. His throne became his cage. The Spain he left behind was weak, divided, and heading toward war. Yet his greatest legacy may be what he taught us through his suffering. Biology cannot be ignored. Charles II was not just a failed king. He was the final result of centuries of ignorance, a warning from history. His life was a tragedy. His death, a release. The Habsburgs believed bloodline was everything. But Charles proved that survival demands more than pride. His story still echoes today as a chilling reminder of what happens when we defy nature.